Right, gentlemen. Shortly past 4 here in Vienna, early mornings in Miami for Pete and all the guys joining us from the US. First of all, let me say a big thank you, Pete, to you for taking the time and joining us. It's an absolute pleasure and honor to have you here at the Light 'em Up Lounge.
My pleasure.
And of course, to all of you guys, ladies and gents, joining us from all over the world. We're also live on the Cigar Journal Facebook page and on my own Facebook page. Let's kick things off. Pete, you've been like an icon and the star of the cigar industries for so many years now. And I know you have a lot of different backgrounds, the music side, the art side, of course. You're very much into your dogs, and we'll talk about all that a bit later on. But to start with a little analogy of the music industry, because I'm a musician myself, if you were to compare your career and your life with a song, where would you possibly be in that song right now? Only starting with the first verse, or a little chorus, a bridge in between to mix things up? Where are you at?
I'm gonna speak in rock and roll. I hope that I could think I'm in the solo right now, the guitar solo, somewhere in the second third of the song.
And how would that solo sound like?
It would probably be out of Highway to Hell. I don't know.
So, Pete, for the people that are probably not as familiar with your background and all the various things that you've done throughout your very exciting life, give us a little background on how you actually got into the cigar industry. Because, as I said, there's a lot of different things that you were into before that, and even still right now. How did it all come together?
Well, so when I was about 20 years old, it was before my 21st birthday. I started getting intrigued about cigars, and I went to a small convenience store and bought a very inexpensive bearing. Actually, I don't know if you know the brand name bearing, but bought an inexpensive bearing, which was a machine made because it had a cone already in it, so you didn't need a cutter. And there was something so perfect about sitting down and doing nothing for an hour, but trying to figure out what was going on, why I had this thing in my hand. So I went down the rabbit hole, and I continued going into retail stores to find like that cigar that really tasted good to me. And that's when I got introduced to premium cigars. The premium cigars back then in the early 90s, were $1, $1.50, $2. They weren't expensive. And but it was expensive to me because I didn't have money. I was a musician. So I started smoking cigars on stage while I was playing, which my bandmates thought I was a little crazy and thought it was strange. But for me, it was a way to kind of just fade away and be at peace. My band broke up shortly after that, and I needed a job, and I realized that I liked the people in the cigar industry, so I wanted to go. I went to a cigar store and was about to ask one retailer, which is no longer there, but I was about to ask him if I could have a part-time job, and to the point where I just wanted to learn about this culture. And the next day, before I could do that, a friend of mine from another cigar store actually showed up at the work that I was working at the time and offered me a Sunday job to mix pipe tobacco.
Was that Gus?
Like
Gus Smoke
yeah,
Shop?
Gus's Smoke Shop. A guy by the name of Dennis Spike. Dennis was like this happy-go-lucky, kind of big fisherman dude, and he just liked me. He actually called me Schwab, which was like his deckhand, right? He introduced me to the culture. I mean, the fact that he actually offered me a job for Sundays, and my job literally for those Sundays was to mix their pipe tobacco blends that they had for the retail. And eventually I became a clerk inside the humidor and started learning everything about cigars. But I realized that this industry was way cooler than the music industry.
How did you start getting into it in terms of all the theoretical knowledge? Did you just grab every single cigar out of the humidor, smoke them, or did you read any books? Because back in the days, there was no like type it into Google and you'll get
Oh yeah,
every information there is.
I have a huge collection of old tobacco books. So I went down that rabbit hole. My parents, they do antiques in their retirement years, and they were able to find me some old books about tobacco or tobacco labels, or any packaging, of course. Anything that had tobacco or cigar on the title, I bought. I would go to actually old bookstores to look for them, and so I have a fairly large collection of old tobacco or cigar books. And then of course I went into the humidor, and literally I was the guy that smelled every cigar. So like, I hate to say that was like this pre thing where, oh, don't smell your cigar. That's kind of foolish to do. But I was the guy that actually smelled every cigar before someone smoked it, because I wanted to learn about what the tobaccos were.
Right. And did you also get some first-hand experience with blending back in those days when you did the pipe tobaccos as well?
No, I mean, pipe tobacco blending is much different. Obviously, you're trying to find a blend that is balanced and suits your palate. So, I mean, really, when we would play around with pipe tobacco, it was really about finding different tobaccos that we wanted to try, and let's see how much of this we can put into that blend to make it different. So, yeah, I guess that's where the first spark of blending started. But I think with the creative background with music and fashion design, when I was a kid, I used to take, two different jackets, and I would mix their components. I would tear it apart, and then I would put the cuffs from one jacket onto the other jacket just to give it a little different look. So I think that was my first introduction to blending, because it was really about personal preference.
I think that's a highly interesting point. Nowadays a lot of people are really into niching down, and everybody's like, you got to be more precise and specific about what you do, and really that one thing that you double down on. And you just mentioned that there's this whole array of different backgrounds and things you were interested in, experiences that you've gathered throughout your life. And I feel the very same way. For me, that is like super important. And everything that I did back in my life, it has a certain impact on no matter what it is that I'm doing. Do you feel the same way? And do you think that your creativity was really sparked by that?
In general, I mean, creativity comes from everywhere. I get sparked from a lot of things. I'm sorry, I have an airplane going over me, so hopefully it's not too loud. At least there's airplanes flying. I think with everything in life, whether it be, the first time I ever tried to cook anything, it was the same thing. I was cooking it to my preference. I wanted to taste certain things about the food, and I would actually spice it in a certain way to make it taste good for me. Same thing with the fashion stuff or writing a song. It was always, at the end of it, when you get done, you have to be happy with it. Otherwise, you can't get behind it. So I think creativity comes from everywhere.
When was that point in your career with cigars where you realized now you're actually doing these blends for yourself, or you're adjusting them to your palate, but then suddenly other people jump on board and they'll be like, I really like that stuff?
Yeah, in 2003, early 2003, when I met Pepin, the first cigar that we ever did was his magic geared to my palate. I had a quick conversation about what I liked and what I wanted in a cigar, and his knowledge, but also his history. He knew exactly what I was talking about. So he was able to just sit down and roll me a quick cigar, which nailed it for me. I think, since then it's expanded. Obviously, I go in the factory and work a little differently because I don't work with Pepin and Jaime as much because they're busy with other clients. But that lesson from knowing what he put into that first cigar really helped me move forward. Without that first lesson of knowing that blend so well, I probably wouldn't be able to do what I do today. because I use that blend as kind of like the base, and I dissect it up and down.
Could you describe that blend in a few brief words to all the guys listening?
Well, it's the Tatuaje Brown Label is a very traditional, very simple traditional blend. Seco, Visa, Ligero. There is there's really no magic in it other than it's just put together very well, and it has a flavor profile that I like. So it wasn't about, again, it wasn't about you know, whether or not someone else would like it. I had to like it first. The joke is that, you know, you make cigars for yourself. The bonus is when actually people like them also. So I can tell you about a cigar and tell you, you know, the character of it, the balance of the cigar, the nutty and the creamy character that you get, the little bit of pepper spice on the front end, but you're going to taste something different. So you never know how to discuss or describe a cigar to someone if they're looking, you know, for something else in life. I'll tell you a quick story. I had a customer at a store at an event that asked me to sell him a cigar, and I said, listen, you know, cigars are different for everybody. What do you usually smoke? And he says Opus X, and I said, I have nothing for you, because Opus X is such a unique character that I didn't make my cigars to copy an Opus X. It was really an expression. I love old school style flavoring and old school style cigars. So when I first made the cigar with Pepin, I was going after a certain profile, which was the Cuban profile.
Now, that is
Obviously,
I think that's super interesting that you mentioned you're sort of a very traditional guy when it comes to certain aromas and flavors, or the way you think about like even the rings of your cigars and the whole approach you bring to the table. But then you also brought so many new elements and sort of gave this rock star image to the cigar industry back in the days when everybody was like well dressed up and guys showing up in suits, and then you came along with your tattoos and a more t-shirt approach, I'd say.
I'll tell you, when I started in the business, so you're talking 27 years ago, I would actually show up to events in a suit. Like, there was something about the industry where I felt like I needed to, you know, be part of this, you know, well-dressed, you know, proper image. And it all started one year when I went to our trade show, when it was called the RTDA. When I went to our trade show in Cincinnati, my luggage got lost, and I was forced to walk onto the trade show floor wearing a t-shirt and jeans. So everybody kind of looked at me like I was the only guy with tattoos, like really the only guy with tattoos. If someone had a tattoo, it was covered up, but no one in the cigar industry ever saw a guy with sleeves. And people, you know, kind of accepted me at that point, and they nicknamed me Tattoo Pete. It became my nickname, and that's where, of course, Tatuaje comes from, is because of my nickname.
Did you actually enjoy that dressing up back then, or did it feel like an obligation for you?
No, I enjoyed it. Like I thought I looked good in a suit. I still think I look good in a suit, but the suits are just a little bigger now, right?
And you also mentioned that your family background was in antiques, right?
But well, my parents, I don't know if my brother's on here or not. Our parents, my dad has always been into antiques. He was a teacher. My mother worked in the hospital system, and their hobby was to collect and sell antiques. And till this day, they still have a little shop where they sell antiques and cigars, actually.
And did you ever feel like you had to sort of disrupt the industry a little bit in order to be heard and stand out as a new brand?
No, I really didn't. I didn't want to, because I respect a lot of the people that came before me. It was really, I believe there's truth in marketing, and I had to be honest with the product, and that's why I'm very traditional when it comes to the product. But I didn't want to come in and, you know, do this crazy show. There were other people that came after I came into the market that really kind of disrupt the market. And I've been labeled one of the disruptors, but I guess the disruption part for me was that I just looked different, and I wasn't a family born into this tobacco business person. So it's very untraditional for a guy like me to come in and actually have a brand that people started recognizing as a good quality product. But it's not the first time.
Right. I think we have your brother here. Maybe you want to say hello for a short moment.
Yeah, I see him up in the top corner. I don't know if everybody sees that, but hey, Kenneth.
We say hello.
He goes by
Kenneth.
Casey, but
hi, Casey. Thanks for joining us.
Hello, how are you? Yeah. It keeps going back to Ken for some reason. I keep signing in as Katie, but oh well.
We're great to have you. Pleasure. Also, guys, I just wanted to let you know that, as always, here at the Light 'em Up Lounge, please feel free to ask your questions, put them in the chat box down below, or you can use the raise your hand button, and then I'll make sure to bring you in. We already had a question from Jorge, who's joining us. Jorge, do you want to bring up your question? And I can unmute you. You're good to go.
Yeah, can you hear me?
yeah, now I can.
All right, good. Hey, Pete, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Quick question for you on the cellophane. I travel quite a bit, and I like to take cigars with me. I find that with Tatuaje, I always have to have a special case to take them. What's your view on cellophane, and why are you probably one of the few brands that are not really using it as the other ones, I guess?
Well, okay, so the majority of cigar collectors and cigar smokers love cigars without cellophane. The majority of tobacconists or retailers around the world, they prefer. The smokers prefer non-cellophane. The stores actually prefer the cellophane because of breakage and damage. When it comes to my brown label in Miami, that's the only cigar now that is without cellophane, except for a couple small cigars we do. I don't know. There's something about the old school feel of opening up a cabinet of cigars that I still love, and it's a romance thing for me. You open up that wax paper and you smell the inside of that bundle. I think that's kind of magic, and that's something you don't get when you have a cigar that's been boxed in cellophane.
Good, thank you, appreciate it.
No, Roy, you're welcome.
Andy, pleasure to have you. Please come up with your question.
Cheers, thank you very much. Andy from the UK. I hope everybody's staying safe and we're good. Pete, you're a legend, big fan. My question was, who do you believe somebody in the industry that doesn't get talked about enough? So who's one of the underrated stars of the industry that doesn't get talked about enough?
Wow, that's tough. I think a lot of the people have forgot some of the old guard that used to be around. A lot of these guys have passed, but if you think about, I always say that Pepin is one of these guys that you could consider him a master because he does everything. He's start to finish, one of those guys that knows his craft, knows everything about it, and can do everything. He sits down at a table and can roll the cigar for you. Plus, he can go out on the farm and actually crop the tobacco for you. There was a guy by the name of Rolando Reyes. He was a kind of a superstar, but you had to know his product to know who he was. He is long past, but people don't recognize that he was actually one of those masters that knew every part of the craft. Another guy that could sit down and roll you the cigar that he just grew in the farm, so newer guys, I'm kind of I'm lost for people's names, but there's a lot of good brands out there, and I think it's really taking a look around and seeing what people like. I'm trying to think. Anybody give me a suggestion of a name, and maybe I can tell you.
I'm smoking a great cigar right now, Pete. I'm smoking the Juarez by Crown Heads.
Oh, there you go. So John Huber. John's been around for, I think, 25 or 26 years. He worked for CAO originally, and John was one of my best friends. He's still one of my best friends in the industry, and he has an idea of what he wants for a product, and I consider him one of the best marketing people in the industry. So that's one great person. I mean, I have a lot of respect for Michael Herklotz with Nat Sherman. I think Michael is one of the talents in this industry that helps push the industry forward. And plus, he's an extremely well-spoken, well-dressed man that I'd be proud to hire him to come and do an event for us, just so we wouldn't have to speak, because he's so good at it, right?
Thank you very much, Andy, for that. Steve from the UK also had a question. Please bring that one up.
I'm not seeing Steve.
Steve, do you want to ask your question? Otherwise, I'll just ask Pete straight away. Pete, I'll tell you, the question was about the story behind the cigar Steve is smoking at the very moment, and it's the Mexican Experience #2.
Sorry, I'm here now. I was having trouble with my microphone. I'd just like to say
Steve,
hi
how
to
are you?
Pete. I'm very well, thank you, Pete, and hi to everyone else who's listening. I'd like to know a little more about the Mexican Experiment, the cigar that I'm smoking at the moment. Is there a story behind it? What came about to bring this cigar together?
When we did the original Mexican Experiment, which was, I think it's probably 9 years ago, or I can't remember, maybe it was less, 8 years ago. It was really a test to see if we enjoyed San Andreas wrapper. It was not my first choice for flavor profile, because it has to be done on the correct blend, so you don't have it be the dominant part of the blend, because San Andreas can be pretty dominant, especially if you have a milder cigar. You're going to taste more of that wrapper. So it was really testing the flavor profile to find a wrapper that I enjoyed. Fast forward with the ME2 was me tasting the original blend and finding that I wanted a little bit more out of the cigar, so I actually made it a little stronger. The internal base blend is a little stronger, and I think it carries the San Andreas better. But honestly, I think both of them are classic cigars. I think the ME1 is a little bit more subdued, easier to smoke. I think the ME2 is one of those cigars that gives you a little bit more kick, but also can age really for a long time.
Thank you. I'm much enjoying this cigar. It's very delicious. Suits my palate very well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oysten, pleasure having you, as always.
Yes, good to see you again. Yeah, I'll ask my question. Hi, Pete. This is Oystein
How are you?
from Norway. How are you? Well, hope to see you again in Dortmund this year, as every year, but we'll see.
Yeah, me too.
Anyway, in our store in Oslo, sometimes we don't do an official program like they often do in the UK with aging cigars, because since we've always been focused on non-Cubans, we were thinking that aging is not that important. But we realized when we started with your cigars that your cigars aged really beautifully, some better than others, and some of them were maybe even meant to be aged the way they were packaged and everything, and we talked about it before. But the recent cigar I smoked from you really brought that back, and when I smoked it, I didn't know what it was, because it was a testing for Cigar Journal. It was the Nuevitas Hibaro #1.
Okay.
Actually, I write it at 91 or something like that. But I wrote in my notes for that cigar that, man, this cigar has everything in it for aging, and I'm sure if I smoke it in another year or two, it's going to be at least a 93 or more. It was really like it had that potential for aging. Like I was thinking about the whole time, this is perfect aging material. Do you do that on purpose sometimes, or do you?
Yeah, I mean, that cigar was built to age. I mean, that cigar was one of those cigars that it's got a pretty full body, full strength base to it, and the wrapper is sun-grown Corojo. So Corojo 99 sun-grown. It's one of those cigars that I think we make cigars that are supposed to taste good off the bench, but will age gracefully. And that's how pretty much all of our cigars that we do are built to be, you know, enjoyed over a long period of time. That's why you still see people with, you know, 15-year-old tatuajes that they're going through their stash slowly because they still smoke very well. But yeah, the Hibero, because of the blend, because of the strength level, it really has that base, a strong base to be able to age for a long period of time and be enjoyed over a long period of time. I'll tell you, older Hiberos, they actually have like this almost citrus quality to it as they sit down for a few years.
Wow, well, looking forward to it then.
Yeah.
Pete, I would like to ask you a little follow-up question on that, because there's different ways about you know, considering aging or going about aging, and one would certainly be using tobaccos that have been aged by themselves for a longer period before you make them into a cigar. And then there will be this other aspect that you mentioned, and I've heard you talking about that before, is where you actually take the tobacco straight away after it's perfectly fermented and rested for a little bit, and then you let them age and sort of come together as the rolled cigar.
Yeah, I think that's the key. The key is to use tobacco that is properly cured and properly processed. And once you have that part of the job done, you can make a great cigar out of that tobacco. I don't think you really need, you know, 7-year-old tobacco to make a great older cigar. We actually don't use any tobacco that's over 4 and 5 years old. I believe that if you build the cigar with properly, you know, fermented product, you know, raw material that's been processed well, that cigar now tastes great as soon as you get it, but you know you can actually smoke it over a long period of time. It's kind of like a bottle of you know,
Bordeaux.
A bottle of 2018 Bordeaux, you know, is not ready to drink. It's you know you can drink it, but you know you're going to enjoy it over a long period of time.
Or like with vintage port, for example, where you know, like all the tannins and everything, they will just mellow out over a lengthy period of time. Whereas with these products, like that process is sort of intended, or the manufacturers think about, you better let this rest for a certain period of time in your cellar. Do you have that same idea in mind when you do the cigars?
Yeah, I mean, I relate to wine pretty heavily when it comes to how I want the cigar to end up, you know, 5-10 years down the road. But I mean, the key again is to start with good quality material. Like, for lack of better words, or for lack of better analogies, if you put shit in the box, it's going to still taste like shit, you know, 10 years from now. You have to start with good raw material. If you start out with really bad grapes, maybe grapes that were, you know, on the vine too long, and they start, you know, shrinking up and shriveling up, you're probably going to end up with, you know, juice that tastes like raisins. So you have to start with good raw material. It's really not more, you know, it's that simple. You know, it's really a simple process, but the key is to start with good material.
Absolutely. We have so many questions coming in. I think people are really enjoying this and asking your questions, Pete. Barton, my man from down in Louisiana, would you like to raise a question, please?
Hey, greetings from New Orleans, everybody. Pete, thank you for joining today.
How you doing down there?
My question. Good. It's we're the epicenter right now, so getting a lot of media, and just trying to hold on tight. So appreciate everybody's support. So we do a lot of outdoors activities here, a lot of heavy, you know, duck hunting and, you know, offshore fishing, and, you know, a lot of rough activities by way of sports. I've always been a big fan of tubos, and, you know, the ability to put 1 or 2 in your pocket without having to, you know, bring something substantial, and you're going to be smoking it within 6 to 12 hours. So it provides enough protection, right? And I was just kind of curious, you know, do you ever anticipate putting one of your cigars in a tubo? And from a manufacturer's perspective, when and why do you choose to put a cigar in a tubo? I mean, is there any opinion? I was always curious about that.
Okay, so I've done it twice. I had a Veracruz and a Black Label, both in tubes. The tube actually looked very similar to the Partagas P2 torpedo tube. I love them, but over the years they seem to have gotten pricier and pricier to acquire. I would love to. I was actually planning on doing another version of it this year, which got cut short for some reason. The quotes I was getting for manufacturing of the packaging were outrageous, and I didn't think I wanted to add that much to a cigar. I think a lot of the tubes back in the old days were used, not in our case, but back in the old Cuban days, were used to actually hide imperfections. The cigars were actually placed in tubes to hide the visual imperfection of the cigar. So, but the tube dressed it up. I actually love tubes for the same reason, because you can take them out and not fear that something's going to get broken. So yeah, I hope to do it again. I hope to find a manufacturer that actually makes a tube for a reasonable price point, so I don't have to make a super premium cigar out of it.
Awesome, thank you.
You're welcome.
By the way, Pete, Andre, in the meantime, he posted a comment and said that he loved the Instagram you did with Michael Herklotz. I was on that one as well. It was a great session. And for all of you guys out there, Michael Herklotz is doing these regular, I think he does it daily now even, right? These calls on Instagram Live with people from various industries. So certainly one to check out for you. And Yellow had a question from Italy. There you go, my man.
Hi, Yellow.
Hi, Pete. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, sir.
Okay, perfect. Sorry for the location, but inside I cannot smoke, and outside it's very cold for doing so. The only question for the only place was my car. But by the way, I had a question on Pepin, but we just moved on a more interesting topic, that it's aging of cigars. I've been questioning producers on what kind of cigars as a good profile for saying when you produce it that this is good for aging. Most people make a match with wine, and I know in theory what is the wine that it's good for aging. When the wine has a good acidity or tannin, you know that there is a good structure, a good body in the wine, you can age. So for sure that you need the quality, because if you don't start with a good quality, the wine is not okay. I have my idea on cigars, but I want to, I can say if you want, but I want to hear your idea on what kind of cigar can be aged for a long time.
I go back to the simplicity factor, and I think it's really about finding a cigar that's perfectly balanced to start. But I believe that sometimes something with a little bit more structure to it, maybe a little bit more strength, will last a little longer in a cigar. Because by the time you think about tobacco as it sits in a bale for a long period of time, if you go past the 5-year mark, you start getting, into tobaccos that are 7, 8, 9 years old. If you grab a Ligero out of one of those bales, you're probably going to have to downgrade it to a Viso. So because it's actually kind of lessened in quality, not so much in quality of as far as look and texture, but as far as flavor profile, it might have mellowed down a little bit. So I think a cigar that has a good strength or body level to begin with will actually age a little longer. It's very much like a big Cabernet from Napa Valley. It's very bold when you first open that young Cabernet from Napa Valley, but over the years, it starts to break down, the tannins start to break down, that heavy juice bomb now turns into more of a silky character. And I think that's what stronger cigars end up doing. If you start with a mild cigar and you age it, it's going to be fairly boring 10 years down the road.
This is what I asked to Jaime. I don't remember when, but I've talked with him a lot of time. And he told me that with the time, one characteristics of the tobacco, even in cigars or leaf, doesn't change. It's the quantity of nicotine, so the strength of the cigar.
Yeah.
If you take, he told me the same that you have told now, that the Ligero after 9 years it just gets downgraded because it's not strong anymore. So for starting a good cigar for aging, you need something that is strong, because in the time, for sure you will have a good aroma, but the balance will lose something because the strength will go down, and you will get maybe a boring cigar. So it's the same
Yeah, I mean, you don't need a cigar with Ligero to really make a cigar that is going to age for a long period of time. But I think when you start using heavier tobaccos, they can carry that aging much better than, let's say, a cigar that only has, Seco in it. If you have a blend that has mostly Seco and a little bit of Viso over a long period of time, it's still going to be very elegant, but it's going to be the palate and the body on the palate is going to drop a little bit.
But if you start with a cigar that's well balanced, that means that the strength and all the other characteristics, the structure, the body, it's everything well balanced. But maybe the aroma will change, but if you want to keep the balance, you have to keep up the nicotine. So if you are losing that, maybe the balance, you will get something for the nose maybe, but for the palate, it will be void. I don't know how to say that. You will choose something that has no structure inside without nicotine. I think something like that.
Yeah, I mean, at some point, if you're smoking a very old, mildly built cigar, it's going to be you're smoking your smoke. That's it. It's a very easy, light palate.
Air.
The mouthfeel. It's like it's almost like taking a Pomerol from not a great producer, but a lower producer, and aging it for 20 years and thinking that you're going to have this very full, mouthfeel of Pomerol. It's going to be a very thin structure to it, and it's going to break down. Like I wouldn't recommend certain vineyards in Pomerol in Bordeaux. I wouldn't recommend aging that wine for too long, because it's going to be so thin. The characteristic, you won't get the same mouthfeel that you would with a top producer. But same thing with the cigars though. If you go with a milder cigar, over the years that you age it, the mouthfeel and that's that body, I think is going to disappear a little bit. You're going to have a very simple, elegant cigar, but the body is not going to be there.
Thank you.
Thanks, Agnello. And I would like to bring up Johan now, who has a question regarding saints and sinners. And also, Johan is also doing a fabulous job on making sure that we get all these beautiful cigars, like the Retro Cuban that I'm enjoying right now. This one was I think a 91 cigar journal, and beautiful smoke. Congratulations on that. Johan, what about your question?
Pete, first of all, thank you from the importer side that you put your cigars in cellophane, because the reject, Cojones, for example, went down to 0, and we really had some issues on that one. A good friend, Pepin, he gave me a package of Saints and Sinners 2018. Can you tell me something about this project?
Sorry, which one was it?
2018 Saints and Sinners package with 5 cigars, which is just amazing.
Yeah, we do a package every year around Christmas time for the club, and it's usually a mix of 5 different cigars. So I wouldn't know which one you had. You remember the color of the label?
It's from 2018. I had the number 3. It's black, red and black. But is it for a special club, or do you give them away in general? No,
they were made exclusively for the club.
Okay.
We do them for the club members to have something special, because now we have 1,600 members across the world in Saints and Sinners. And when we do these projects, we're talking about, we try to make as many packs as there are members. And it's always just a unique experience of what we want to put in the pack. A lot of times we do experimental blends or something we want to give the members an exclusive on.
And how can I join this club here from Europe? Is this possible? And the other,
it is. We're not going to open up membership right away this year. We're going to hold back in hopes that the world will get back to normal soon. And I know that when we open it up, we'll make an announcement. So I'll let you know when you can join.
okay, thank you.
And Peter, I know for a fact that this club means a lot to you personally, right? Would you like to elaborate a little more on the club and what's behind it?
You know, it was actually built originally to just help market and advertise Tatuaje and Tatuaje products, but it's also a club for people who enjoy cigars. So it's not exclusive to Tatuaje. I mean, the conversations in the forum are about everybody and every brand that are on the market. But it became a community of a good community of a lot of, you know, degenerates, but a lot of good charitable people that help out. It's definitely a brotherhood and a sisterhood. There's a lot of, you know, there's other manufacturers that are actually members. John Huber, we talked about, is a member of the club. Jonathan Drew at one time was a member. A lot of retailers around the country are members. It was an advertising tool for Tatuaje. It became a community of a brotherhood or sisterhood. And we use the platform to do good things for other people.
That's wonderful. Actually, that's what we're trying to do here as well, you know, to bring people together and to just enjoy the conviviality and being together with wonderful people like yourself and enjoying fine cigars. Laurent had
last night we had 79 people on the Zoom platform. It was tough to see because you had to scroll through a lot of pages, but you know, to see a lot of people you haven't seen in a while. Same thing with here. I'm seeing people that I love seeing in Germany at the Dortmund show every year, and it's just nice to be able to like have conversations.
Absolutely, fully agree. Laurent.
Oh, my buddy.
Hi guys. Hi bro.
How are you, Laurent?
How are you?
Good.
It's long time.
Right?
Just I'm just actually currently I'm looking for I'm trying to find the best wrapper, you know, and I'm working on it. And then I wrote a lot of things about wrapper. That's why the question is, what's your favorite wrapper, for instance, right now? Do you have something special? Because I saw a lot of things about there's too many wrapper, and I would like to work, for instance, once with Cameroon. It's a dream to have some Cameroon wrapper, but I saw a lot of different things. What's your favorite one, for instance?
Yeah, we haven't had any good luck with Cameroon. I mean, it's a cool wrapper. It adds a cool character and flavor to it, but it's very fragile. And we haven't had any good luck with actually finding Cameroon that we were so in love with that we had to use. As far as wrappers go, I mean, I love simplicity in cigars. So when you talk about what we do in Nicaragua or in Miami, a lot of the product that we use is very traditional Cuban seed tobacco. So I love the traditional Cuban seeds. Of course, the Garcias grow all this tobacco themselves now, which is a pleasure because we get to experiment more with different farms that they're growing off of. But I mean, one of my favorite wrappers, of course, is Connecticut broadleaf. It's not the prettiest of wrapper. I like to call it rustic. I know that's not the best word for anything that we do, but it has a naturally sweet quality to it. And compared to a wrapper like San Andreas, I think it's a little cleaner. It has, for lack of better words, broadleaf has a grit to it, but it's like a sweet grit. So it's almost toothy and chewy. With San Andreas, which is basically the same seed varietal grown in a different area, has almost like a chalky character to it. And again, with San Andreas, if you put that on a milder blend, you're going to start tasting the San Andreas more, and it's going to be offensive to the palate and to the aroma. But broadleaf, I've made cigars 100% out of broadleaf. So I don't know, it's just a fun old tobacco, and it's not the prettiest tobacco, but it adds a ton of flavor. it's just one of my favorites. It's been one of my favorites since I was younger.
Okay, and just because I read that my father worked with Havana, Connecticut, Havana, is it right?
Say that again.
Is it true? My father, Don Pepin, worked with used to work with Havana, Connecticut, Havana. I never heard about.
They're actually growing experimental Connecticut seed crop, which is the old Cuban seed, Havana, Connecticut, down in Nicaragua. They did a small crop this last year to test, and the most important part about that test was to cultivate more seeds.
Okay, thanks.
I mean, we're very lucky with I say we, Dan, my brother, and I. We have a lot of choices now with the Garcias with what they're growing down in Nicaragua. If you can name a Cuban seed varietal, they're growing it, and we get to experiment with all those fun, old Cuban seeds. So, including like Pelo de Oro, which is another oddball tobacco leaf that you have to be careful about how much you put in a blend, otherwise it might overpower the cigar.
Okay.
Many thanks for your question, Laurent. Ricardo was next. He had a question.
Great, thank you, and greetings to everyone here from cloudy London. Pete, pleasure to meet you here, and hopefully next time you're here in London, we can meet in person. And yeah, I'm curious to hear a bit more about what impact has it had for your business, particularly the whole COVID pandemic. I mean, in terms of from the source to how you're working in providing and supplying it in the States and other territories. How is that impacting you personally? If there's something you can share with us, high level, how do you see it progressing, and potentially what we can do as governments to help you and help some of the producers in countries like my country, like Nicaragua, and other countries?
Well, so in Nicaragua, they're going to be going on holiday break coming up in the end of the week. Well, actually, next week starts their holiday, but the factory has been slowing down, ramping down slowly because you just can't shut down a big machine like that. You have to do it on a slower process. The factory is actually going to be shut down for a few weeks to make sure the employees stay healthy. The problem with their holiday that's coming up, a lot of the local people in Nicaragua, they go out and enjoy life. This is a very big holiday for them, and the fear is that they're not going to be on the safe side of what's going on right now. As far as the United States goes, we run on a small skeleton crew anyways in Los Angeles, so that's where we do our distribution. And right now we work 3 days a week just to really, Mondays, they do packing from orders that came through the weekend. Tuesdays, they make sure that the office is sanitized and clean to make a safer workplace. And then Wednesdays, they go in, and anything that might have come in on Monday or Tuesday, they ship on Wednesday. And the rest of the week, they go home to their families. We have the luxury of being able to do that because we still have people ordering cigars from us, and there are a lot of online retailers that need the product and that are supplying the consumers every day of the week. So I think in Nicaragua, after the holiday is done and after their long stretch of a holiday, because it's going to go past the normal holiday, as long as the country's safe and there is no increase in the COVID down there, I hope to get back to work normally, because we are going to need product. I mean, we started running out of product in our warehouse in the United States this last week. So hopefully we get back to normal soon.
Great, thank you, Pete.
And be safe, Ricardo. Greetings to London, my second home away from home. It's always a pleasure to have you. Pete, we had a question coming up from multiple people. That was Scott and also Joe. And they asked him if there was anybody in the industry you would like to do a collaboration with or to make a blend with. Who could that possibly be?
I get to ask this a lot. I always joke that I think my favorite collaboration is working with the Garcias. That's my easiest answer. Yeah, I don't know. Honestly, I get to play around so much in what we do. And of course, we have a collaborative cigar already, which is called La Dueña. It's a cigar that I made for my wife, Yanni Garcia. And it's a cigar that they actually sell under their portfolio. So that was like the first collaboration. I don't know. I mean, it'd be tough for me to say like if there was someone that I would dream to work with, because I have so much fun and pleasure in the people I work with already. And you know, my love for the family, I would almost not want to do a collaboration outside of the factory. So I've been offered collaborations before that I've turned down because they've always wanted to work outside the factory, and I would rather support my family.
Appreciate that. Many thanks. Andy had a question about another project of yours that has been highly successful. It's the Monster series. So Andy, I saw you just finished the box of 2014, the Jackals. You had a question.
Yeah, Pete, basically,
yeah,
what's coming next? We understand you've just done 12 and 13 last year, so we've kind of got to 13. What happens next?
I actually am doing a cigar in the interim that's based off of a cigar I did the second year of the Monsters, which was called Boris. This year coming up is going to be a newer blend of the Boris. It's kind of a kicked up version of it, and it's called Karloff. So it stays within the theme of the actor that played Frankenstein. So, but it's a twist on the original blend.
Cool.
Couple of comments in between. Rusty really enjoyed your Michael Herklotz session as well, and then we got a great feedback about the questions on here. They're phenomenal from Rusty as well. A couple more questions. There was one from Aniello. Pete, what would have been Pete without Pepin, and Pepin without Pete?
I think Aniello's asked me this question before. I think
Pete, sorry,
hey,
you didn't answer that time, so I'm asking you again.
You know what? I think that if I wasn't around, Pepin still would have become a superstar because that's what he is. I was just the lucky guy that met him first. Like I took a chance on working with Pepin when no one knew who he was. And early on, people always said, like, why are you putting all your eggs in one basket? I said, because the basket's really nice. And I feel safe there. I feel protected there. They've always been very serious about keeping the blends that we put together for my products, for my products only. That's why the factory has so many different blends, is because they do offer their other clients different twists of old school style blending. And sorry about the plane above me again. I think Pepin would have been a superstar regardless. I was the lucky guy that met him first. I took a chance on him early, and I think the lucky part of what I was able to do was find a great producer that was going to make me great quality product.
And Pete, I really appreciate your comment that you made on sticking to the family and that surroundings you feel so well protected by, and you just enjoy being around that family. Now, I know you had other collaborations, or let's say other endeavors that you ventured into with the wine, for example. Is that probably more a field where you would like to test other playgrounds and do some other collaborations?
No, I think with the wine part, it was a good excuse to what I call a vanity project. It was a great way for me to go through the creative process in a different platform. I love the creativity. I love the aspect of blending wine, similar to blending cigars. Yeah, I mean, shit, if I was offered a collaboration with one of my favorite winemakers, I would jump on it. But the wine was a fun hobby. I never made it into a business. But if one of my favorite winemakers called me up and said, "Hey, would you like to come to Bordeaux and let's do a collaboration and we'll slap your name on a bottle of wine that we're going to distribute," I would jump on it.
And I heard this wonderful story when you sort of took the blending approach from cigars to wines. I think it was a wine that you made for a well-awarded cigar of yours, like a
Well,
cellar.
it was actually made for my wife, Yanni Garcia. I took her to Bordeaux I was actually working on my 2012 vintage of Bordeaux. Actually, I use everything from Saint-Emilion. So at one point I had an AOC designate of Saint-Emilion because all the process and the juice was coming from Saint-Emilion. Eventually, they started vinifying that juice in Pauillac and bottling in Pauillac. So I lost the designation. So now it's just an AOC Bordeaux. Anyways, I took Yanni to Bordeaux to experience what I did over there, and of course to drink a lot of wine. And I said to her, I said, you should make a barrel's worth of wine for your family to celebrate Flor de las Antillas being #1, which was 2012. And she had no idea what she wanted in a blend. So I actually had her call her dad and ask him, in his favorite blend, what seed varietals would he use and what percentages of those seed varietals would he use in a cigar. So when he told us the blend, it ended up being 3 different seed varietals of tobacco: Habano, Criollo, and Corojo. Very classic, simple Cuban seeds. And he explained, 35% of this, 35% of this, and 30% of this. And I related those tobacco varietals with wine varietals. So with Habano, I actually paired it with Merlot because I think Habano has like this silky character to it, but it still can have a ton of flavor. And that's where I think Merlot is. So we went through the different Merlots and the different Cabernets and the different Cabernet Francs. And I stuck to the percentages, but made sure that the blend was actually balanced. And through that process and through that idea of Pepin's favorite tobacco blend, we were able to create a really enjoyable wine.
A question: when you create a certain blend, or you create a new cigar, or you write a new song, or you assemble a beautiful wine, it's almost like you're telling a story, and you're offering that story to all the people who will hopefully relate to that. How do you personally translate a certain story that you have in your mind into an actual product or into a blend?
It's real simple. It's trial and error. I mean, like, you could write a song a million times and think it's awesome, and then eventually you listen to it again, you go back and rewrite it. It's really trial and error. You never know what you're going to get out. I mean, it's testing. Like, we test cigars constantly, and sometimes that first version of the song really is not that good, and you have to go back and rewrite it. I think with anything that we create, you could make pasta one day and think it's pretty horrible, but you could take those same ingredients the next day and it turns out perfect. It's really tough to say, other than, it's really trial and error.
And would you most often have a clear vision in mind, and then you try something and you'll be like, yes, that's exactly where we want to go, and you might just tweak little things here and there? Or is it also that you'd be like, well, that certainly was a totally wrong direction, let's do something completely different?
Yeah, we go in with a plan. Obviously, we go in with an idea and a concept of what we want to taste, especially when sometimes I have the brand name before I have the cigar, but I know what style of cigar I want to do under that brand name. And then sometimes it just doesn't work. Usually those cigars that don't work, they just never get produced. We have that luxury. Like, if we don't like it, we can just not make it. If you own a vineyard and you're making wine, you don't have much of a choice. You end up having to find something that tastes as good as possible. We have the luxury that with so many different tobaccos and so many different blends and cigars that we have on the market, if we don't like something, we just don't need to produce it.
Well, for me, like everything that I work with is sort of around sensory experiences, creating specific experiences. And I used to bartend a lot, and I'm a producer of vermouth and absinthe. So for me, like sensory is like having a database in mind of all the things that I sampled or tried over the years. And then I have sort of a phantom taste and aroma within my sensory system that I then try to replicate. Does it feel the same way for you with all the tobacco knowledge that you have and the experience? Do you just take all these different database information and put them together?
Yeah, I mean, a sense memory is a big part of what we do. Dan and I talk about it all the time because we met over a bottle of wine, actually. So that sense memory, I'm going back in time and enjoying things that you grew up with. And then you pick out those notes like, oh, I remember a cereal that I grew up with. Like, I can taste that cereal in what I'm smoking. We use sense memory a lot in everything we do. And it's almost like time traveling. Like, I'll light up a cigar sometimes off of a new project, and it will remind me of a cigar that I tasted 25 years ago. So yeah, we go into a project we go in looking for a certain profile to model after. And then sometimes we get lucky early on and we have that sense memory that takes us back in time. That's a very important part of the process.
Aldo raised a perfect follow-up question to that. Maybe you want to bring that one up.
Yes. Hello. Hi, Pete. It's a great pleasure to see you here, and I'm super happy to see that everything is going well there, and to see you so smiling. So thank you for being here. Thank you, everyone. And well, my question is more or less you already give the answer. My question was when you decide to produce a new blend, you think about what the market needs, or you have an idea in your mind and you maybe try to find how to develop it, or maybe you try to experiment new technique, new plants, new tobacco leaves, or maybe new technique of fermentation. It's something that starts from your mind, or you are driven by the needs of the market or the customer that ask, maybe the market asks something, and then you try to fulfill this need.
No, actually, Aldo, I think we've talked about this before, but I go into every cigar that we produce. It has to be good for us first.
Okay.
I don't look at the market demand. I look at my personal demand. A lot of times I'll make a cigar because I don't see it on the market, or I want to replace something that I've had on the market. A good example is the Quintero Favoritos, which are a Rothschild made out of picaduro in Cuba. When I would be in Europe, I would always grab those because they're inexpensive and I can walk around the streets in Europe and enjoy without having to think too much about it. And I realized that I had the ability to do something along that style for myself, which I do under the brand called Triunfador. So it's really personal need more than anything. I don't think I've ever gone into a cigar and said, this is what the market needs. Maybe I've gone into a cigar and say, this is what I want to put out because it's not out there and I want to see if it works. But it has to work first for me.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you very much.
We also had a very interesting question coming through Facebook from one of the guys who's joining us on the live stream. And we say hello to everybody who's joining us on Facebook and Instagram. How protective is your company, Pete, when it comes to secrecy? The gentleman who's asking, he heard from other producers that they're very strict, like on visitors to their facilities and factories, like not giving away too many information or insights. Can you relate to that?
Well, if you obviously we don't talk about specifics in blends. Like we don't talk about like what specific priming of the leaf and that we're using inside. I mean, when I talk about specifics, we're not saying, okay, we're telling you what the Ligero is, we're telling you what the Viso is, we're telling you what the Seco is. We're not telling you the particular cut of the priming. There are some secrets we keep close, but I think the Garcias are very open in what they do. When we take people through the factory, and Aniello knows, you see every part of the factory, because I think knowledge is power, right? You need to have all that knowledge to be able to understand what you're enjoying. So we don't, again, we don't tell you the secret blends that we use in the factories. We don't tell you other people's blends. Like, you know, of course, the Garcias make cigars for the Levin family that make San Cristobal and La Roma de Cuba. I think it's called La Roma de Caribe over there. Obviously, I don't know the blends that the Levin family uses, and I don't know the blends that John Huber uses, but when it comes to our blends, we know what goes into every component, and it gives us the ability to, you know, tweak things and make them better. So secrecy is not, the Garcias are very open with what they do, and they want people to learn about the process that they do.
Last week, when we had Maya Selva joining us, I was talking to her about the idea of terroir, this very French wine idea and concept. And if you think about what you just said, I mean, you're all working with sort of the same instruments, to take the music analogy, right? And there's almost like an infinite possibility of combinations that you could come up with. And even though somebody knows the exact specifics of what it is that you're doing, and which leaves, which primings you're using, and the seed varietals, still it will be different, right?
It will be different. Yeah, I mean, I believe that I could tell you a blend here today, and if you don't have the same tobaccos that I'm using, you're not going to make the same cigar. And I think Rocky Patel actually said it in the documentary, is like, you could give the same tobacco to George Padron and to him, and the different process that they do on the tobacco before it gets into a cigar, and even the way they bunch the cigar, or, you know, even the way they're bunching the cigar is going to change the dynamic of the cigar. And again, the same tobacco could turn out to be completely different. Yeah, go ahead.
No, sorry, please finish your thought.
No, I think terroir is a big deal. We use it obviously in the wine world, and I agree with the tobacco world. It means a lot to the tobacco or the seed varietal when it's grown in the field, because there are certain plots on each farm that taste different with the same tobacco. So, I mean, I know that in the Garcia's first farm, which is called La Estrella, the Star Farm, I know that lot 1 produces stronger tobacco than lot 2, and they're, you know, there's no real separation to them. It's literally a cart path. So yeah, there's an old joke, but I won't tell it because it's kind of dirty. So close, but tastes so different, right?
Gino, you had a question.
Yeah. Good evening. Hi to everybody. Hi, Pete. My question goes to the Pelo de Oro. As I'm mainly, everybody maybe knows, I'm mainly smoker of Cuban cigars. And we always say that the great Cuban cigars of the 80s, 70s were with the Pelo de Oro. And that's why they aged so well. And still today, there is an auction market for these kind of cigars. You said that, of course, to age a cigar, it's important the strength from your point of view. So,
well, I mean,
and you
not
are
just the
also
strength,
using. Well, one of the factors would be the strength. So you are using now, or you're going to use mainly Pelo de Oro in some of your blends. Would you think that those cigars will be then possible to age for 20 years, 30 years, or it's not your intention to promote it that way? Just you produce it and you want people to smoke it straight away?
No, I think Pelo de Oro is a strange one for me, because yeah, it offers a stronger flavor characteristic and body, but it's, for me, Pelo de Oro is like a seasoning, because sometimes if you put too much Pelo de Oro in a blend, I think it actually overpowers what the true flavor of the blend is. Sorry, I'm going to mute myself for just a second.
Another plane coming. You got plenty of these, right? For a lockdown.
More plane to you than car to me.
Yeah, too many planes this morning. I'm actually surprised. It's actually good to hear them, though. Dan and Casey, my brother, who are on here, know this pretty well also, is that we've actually had blends that we've used Pelo de Oro in, because the Garcias grow Pelo de Oro. And sometimes the blend gets overpowered. So you really need to find the right style of cigar to put Pelo de Oro in. I don't think the Pelo de Oro is made for a lighter flavored cigar, or a lighter bodied cigar, because it will overpower the blend. So I find that when you're using Pelo de Oro, you need to use it in a stronger, more full flavored blend. And hence you go back to the first point, which is that fuller flavored, fuller bodied cigar will end up aging gracefully over time, but it needs to start as a balanced blend first. And I think Pelo de Oro is unbalanced in a milder cigar.
Okay, thank you.
Right. Big shout out to Dubai. Pleasure to have you again. I would love to bring your question up next. You just go ahead and unmute yourself, please.
Yes, there we are. Sorry, I look like I'm speaking out of a black hole here. It's dark out here. And Pete, we met briefly in Intertabac last time.
Yes.
Yeah, the My Father cigar. You gave me a lot of your time, and I really appreciated that. And excuse my ignorance. At that time, I knew about the cigar, but I did not know that you were the person behind the cigar. And then when I went back to my partner, and I was like, "This is a very interesting guy over there. I think he knows a lot about cigars." He's like, "No shit, of course he knows a lot about cigars." So I did not know much, but thank you for your humble approach. We were supposed to have your cigars here this current month, but unfortunately, due to the circumstances, that's not the case. And we look forward to having you in Dubai soon and hosting you and taking care of you here. The question that I had, and I love the blending or the pairing that you're talking about, wine and cigars. It's always I love wine, and it's always very confusing to me as to whether you actually can have the perfect pairing in wines and cigars, acidity versus alkaline or what have you. And also the fact that you're a musician, and obviously the fact that you love your food. So my question to you is the perfect moment. What song, what cigar, what wine, and what food?
Wow. I think
obviously your wife is
moment,
going to be
tough.
the other four factor.
Yeah, aside from having my wife there.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm a simplist when it comes to food. I think you give me a great pasta, maybe like a carbonara or a cacio e pepe.
Nice.
Real simple, real simple pasta. Nothing fancy about it. Give me a cigar just like this, a Mareva. Wow, music. I don't know. I'd probably be listening to opera if I had that moment. Just because I think it's just every moment's going to change though. The mood is going to change. That's why we don't make one style cigar. We try to make multiple versions and multiple styles, because I always say this as an analogy. When you're smoking a cigar, you tend to like switch around a lot because you don't want to eat the same food for every meal of the day. Like if someone told me that I had to eat pizza for every meal, I'm sure I would enjoy it, but at the same time, I get a little bored over time. So I think it's necessary to have choices, and my mood right now, because of the weather, I would love to have this cigar, a cup of coffee, and maybe some type of very soothing music behind me. But I have birds flying around me in the wind, so it's very peaceful. So I think the music right now is the birds and the wind and the airplanes.
Great.
And
And
the perfect moments are always going to change.
of course, of course, of course. That's great. And my next question, if I may, what's the next, as cliche as it might sound, what's the next best thing?
Wow. Oh, you mean you're talking about what we're coming out with, or just the next best thing?
The next, no. I mean, the next best thing, as far as you're concerned, in your cigar focus, let's say.
You know what? I'll use a quote from, not really a quote, but something that I hear from the family every year. Every year when they're growing tobacco, it's that crop is better than the last year. So the next best thing is the next cigar you smoke. I always joke about, like, someone like, what do you think of the new Monster? I go, this is my favorite Monster. And they're like, really? And I'm like, well, because it's the newest one. And today that's the one that's hitting my palate before anything else. So I think the next best thing is just the next thing you pick up, because the best cigar is the one that you guys have in your hand, because that's the one you're enjoying at that moment. So
exactly. Excellent. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you, Ryan.
Pete, speaking of overall like holistic experiences and experience design, which I'm very much into, do you think that's something the cigar industry should look into a little more, like coming up with more intricate pairings and probably thinking about all these surroundings, not just a drink that you pair with the cigar, but the lighting, the music, and especially when you think about a certain retailer, like a brick and mortar or a cigar lounge. Do you think there's room for improvement or more ideas to be brought to the table there?
Yeah, I think it's about the education of what we do. And I think to educate everybody's senses around them and their palate, it's good to have those outside elements. We all know that we could have the best cigar in our hand and we could have our neighbor blasting rap music, and it will probably just make our cigar taste really bad because we're not enjoying our surroundings. So I think as the cigar world could advance would be to teach people how to enjoy what we do more, and all those senses around us make us enjoy cigars even more.
Heiko had a great question that he put into the chat box. Heiko,
Pete,
you're still there? Yeah, there he is.
Bon Chasseur, the 10th anniversary cigar. For me, it's totally different from all the other lines you have. It's milder and creamy. It's a fantastic cigar. Why is this so different?
Well, I mean, the 10-year anniversary is based off of the brown label core blend. So there's not much change, but I think the brown label blend is just a very well balanced cigar. On paper, you would consider it more medium to full, but because of the balance in that cigar and in the blend, it actually acts a little lighter than it is. And the only really big difference with the Bon Chasseur is that it's made in Nicaragua compared to make it in Miami. If I put that cigar together in Miami, it actually might taste different just because of the climate. If you taste any brown label that might be made in Miami compared to Nicaragua, you might taste a slight difference because of the climate that you're in. There goes another plane, sorry.
Okay. Is it specially aged also, the tobacco?
No, everything that goes into a Miami blend or a brown label blend uses the same components that we use, whether it be in Nicaragua or Miami. I think it all has to do with the balance of the cigar, and the blend is very traditional and classic. There's nothing fancy about the brown label blend. It's a very traditional, simple, classic old Cuban blend. And when I say old Cuban blend, I'm talking more of the style of Cuban cigars from like the 70s and the 80s, when they had a little bit more richness and depth to them. Now these cigars that we're doing are based off of those old styles. And again, there's nothing fancy about it. The tobacco is the same tobacco that we use in other cigars. Obviously the blend is different, but the balance of the cigar makes it more of that creamier and silkier character.
Okay. You have now a new distributor in Germany with Thorsten Wolferts, and we are lucky to get your stuff after more than 2 years back in Germany. So is your plan to get all lines back to Germany, or?
I think right now we're trying to focus on what's working well and what the market over there is looking for. Obviously, our brown label product or the RC series, those are more in demand over there. And I mean, trust me, I'm very happy that Thorsten's working with us now. The first time I ever met Thorsten, he wanted to bring my product line into Germany, but I was working with another distributor. And after a 2-year drought, we decided to go with someone that we were very comfortable with, and that someone that was always knocking on our door. So we're very happy to be with Thorsten, and we're slowly building up the portfolio. We don't know how much we're going to bring over there, but we're slowly building it up to where it's more focused. I think we got a little lost over the years.
Yes. Was a pity.
Yeah.
Pete, speaking of different markets and different palettes, different styles that people enjoy, like the RC series that I'm smoking right now, do you design these blends specifically for certain markets, or would you say like this is a cigar probably more targeted towards a European palette in contrast to what you're doing for your bigger market in the US?
You know, my opinion on that has changed over the years so drastically, because when we first started going to Germany for the trade show, I noticed a trend of the smokers were smoking more of that medium body, maybe medium minus. So I thought I knew the profile of what people were enjoying, but I think it's gravitated over the years. People are enjoying fuller flavor, fuller body. The RC series on paper, again, is a very full-bodied blend, but there's a balance to it to where it acts a little lighter than it is. I just kind of stuck with what I knew best, which is, you know, working with the base of brown label, and I actually dissected it upwards and made it a little fuller and stronger to give just something different to the European market than what we do over here.
With a lot of,
again, my opinion on what works well in different markets has changed over the years. For a good example, with Italy, when I went to Italy, I noticed that they were smoking, one, a lot of Toscanos, and then two, they happen to be smoking more of my stronger cigars. So when I did the Fausto for Italy, I realized that the Fausto blend was, you know, more geared to the palate of the consumer over there because of the styles that they were smoking. So in that case, with Fausto for Italy, that was geared towards what I thought was working well in that market.
But would you still design more for specific markets, or just be like, let's do this particular blend, this is what I really enjoy and I think this smokes really nicely, and then you just put it out there and whoever likes it, and if you do not, then go and find something else?
Yeah, no, I mean, honestly, with the Italian thing, I actually was focused on finding what was working well in my brands already over there, and also to kind of marry my brand to their palate. But in the end, it's really just finding a cigar that we enjoy before we even put it out to anybody. Like, so with the RC series, I have to love it. That's a cigar I could easily put into the United States. And a lot of them, trust me, a lot of them are coming back to the United States. A lot of consumers are actually ordering from retailers in different countries to get them back here. In the end, I have to love it. And hopefully the consumers in the European region or the international countries that we sell that to enjoy it also.
And we certainly are trying our very best to also connect these different worlds and have people from Asia, from Europe, from the US, all joining us here at Light 'em Up. And I think this is just one beautiful way to bring the global cigar family a little closer together and have people enjoying beautiful cigars in the same room, in the same lounge. Pete, I realized with a lot of your series, like the Selección de Cazadores and the Havana 6, there's a lot of depth, a lot of analogies and certain thoughts that you put into it in regards to your other passion, which is dogs in particular. Would you like to go into that a little bit? Because we also had a question from Andy who said that you made the Havana for one of your dogs and whether there will be a new blend for a current Rottweiler.
Yeah, I mean, we have a saying in our group, in our family, that every dog that passes gets a cigar, whether it be a simple one cigar, one cigar, or it could be a whole line. So every time one dog passes, we always try to pay tribute to that dog with having something to remember him by. We just did it for surrogates for a dog named Kenji that Dan lost last year, and we put together a cigar specifically to pay tribute to Kenji. I don't know. It's just something. Everybody's got to have a theme and a reason, but that one's more of our way to remember our past, and hopefully we don't have to make any tribute cigars for any dogs anytime soon.
With the K222, there's a special story to that as well, right?
Yeah, that was Kona. He was our youngest. Well, at the time, he was our youngest Rottweiler that had passed. He was about 8 years old, and he passed at 2:22 p.m. And since that day, that number kind of like haunts me. It's a number that follows me around everywhere, and he, I think it's his way of saying it's an angel number. You can look this up on the internet. It's his way of saying everything is okay, and everybody's looking after us. So I named it K222, Kona 2:22 p.m. But that 222 number follows me. It haunts me.
There was another question from Joe. I'm just looking if he's still there. Joe, would you like to ask your question?
Hi, am I unmuted? Yes, I am. So first of all, hello everyone from not quite so sunny Wales. My question was, if you had to choose a box or sort of like a stick in particular to be your desert island smoke, what would you choose?
Yeah, I have one cigar that I consider my desert island cigar, which is the Tatuaje Miami Selección de Cazador Havana Cazadori, it's called. One of my favorite cigars when I was younger smoking was the Romeo Cazadori, because I have so many memories of opening up boxes of Romeos and opening up that foil bundle and smelling that chocolate factory when you put your nose inside of that bundle. I have that same experience with this Havana Cazadori, so that means a lot to me. That size was part of my first 6 sizes that I ever did. That particular size was always one of my favorites. It's a 6 3/8 by 43. I think it's a very classic size, and it was modeled to make me remember the Romeo Cazadoris when I grew up. You know, the Romeo Cazadoris from what I was smoking in the early 90s were way different than what a Romeo Cazadori is now, and I modeled that Havana Cazadori after that.
Awesome. As a follow-up question, which I also posted if I'm allowed, as a first-time Tatuaje smoker, what would you recommend I follow up with?
Well, honestly, I would, if you can get a chance to smoke it, I would actually try the Noea, which I'm smoking right now. This is made, it's the Miami Brown Label blend, and it's just a classic size. I think it's a gentleman's cigar. A classic Mareva 5 1/8 by 42 is something very peaceful with a cup of coffee in the morning. And it's one of my favorite cigars to light up right now.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Pleasure to make your acquaintance.
Thank you.
Many thanks, Joe. Pete, if it wasn't for the world of premium cigars, what else would you be venturing in?
I don't know. If I had a choice, I would love to do the wine thing. I was doing it as a hobby, but if I ever got the chance, I would probably, I wouldn't say be a professional winemaker. I think I have that dream of retiring in a small vineyard and picking grapes. And if I croak while I'm picking grapes off of my vineyard, and when I say small vineyard, I'm talking like 1 hectare, you know, I think that would be a great way to retire and a great way to kind of disappear in the world.
And how about the music? Is that something you would ever go back to?
Yeah, I don't know. I still love playing. My wife caught me yesterday playing and posted a picture. I still enjoy music. I still love listening to it. I think when I was younger, I wanted to be on stage in front of, 50,000 people. And as I get older, the more I want to be kind of closed up in a box, so I think just to be at peace and enjoying life more than anything. And I think cigars are what gave me everything I have. So I don't think it'd be hard for me to go to somewhere else. I used to love and enjoy doing clothing. That was a big part of my life. I ventured into a small business doing denim and flannel shirts. And about 2 years of sampling and pattern changes and design changes, I decided that it was too much work. So I think if I found something, it would be something with very less, low stress, if that's possible.
Pete, we're already an hour and 40 into our conversation, which I'm enjoying tremendously. It's wonderful to have you, and I would like to thank all of you guys for joining us today. Those who are joining us on a regular basis, you probably know this already, but I just put the PayPal link into the chat box. We're trying to give something back and to do a little donation to those people who are severely struggling in these challenging times. And this is just a little add-on to our initiative. We're trying to build this global community here with Light 'em Up, and I really want to do something good and give something back to the community and people that are in severe challenges. So all of you guys, please feel free, if it's $1 or $2, please feel free to make a little donation, and we highly appreciate all your support and you all being part of our global family. So I just put that into the chat box. Please feel free to use it or share it and make a little contribution. With the music analogy, Pete, at the beginning you mentioned you're into your solo with your career and what you're doing in life. What's next after the solo?
Hopefully a long ending. Like I think this would be a good time to maybe go into another long solo like Freebird at the end and keep on playing it. I think like this is that world that I love being in, and I've always said that I want to grow old in this industry, and maybe one day when I'm 70 or 80 years old, walking through the trade show floor, a 25-year-old kid says, "Hey, that's a Tattoo Pete." I think just to be part of this industry is it's a blessing, and to be, respected in the industry by my mentors, most importantly, the people that came before me, who I respect a lot, show that mutual respect back, and I appreciate just being part of a world that I didn't start, and just being a part of a world that I love.
Wonderful, great to hear, and I really appreciate how you always say that you like the cigar industry so much because of all the people who are in it, not just the product, but actually that global cigar family. And that's really what brings all of us together. And there's a wonderful quote from Marco Pierre White, who back in the days was a chef in the UK, the youngest chef actually to ever earn 3 Michelin stars. And he said, wow, perfection is little things done well. And I can fully relate to that, because it's these subtle details, it's the nuances, and ultimately I'm taking probably, as you mentioned, a sort of a traditional approach, and just cherishing these things that have always been there and that have proven to the state of time, you know, and sticking to those things. And I think this is exactly what you do with your brand and with Tatuaje as well.
I think, you know, we have a lot of crazy ideas in what we do. You know, Dan Welsh, who's on here, we have a brand called Surrogates, and it's a project-based line of cigars. Every cigar is a different cigar. So we were having fun doing these different styles, and basically each cigar is its own unique experience. But at the end of all of being crazy and coming up with silly ideas, the key is to stick with tradition and respect the tradition. I mean, there's nothing more simple than putting a cigar together. But if you follow that tradition, doesn't matter how crazy you get with your idea, you have to stick with the basis, which is tradition.
Absolutely.
Because you can't reinvent this. You just have to try to make it different.
Wonderful. Pete, thank you so much. And thank you to all of you guys joining us. It's been a wonderful session. We really appreciate you being here. And Pete, all the very best for you, even in these challenging times. Guys, if you still have any more questions, please bring them up. Feel free to unmute your mic. But that's a wrap for us. And Pete, again, thanks for being part of this. It's been a pleasure and an honor having you on the show.
No, thank you for having me. I was very intrigued by what you were doing. My friend Laurent actually was the one that brought it to my attention, and I love the Q&A. I love the fact that everybody's enjoying life still, trying to enjoy life in such a hard time. So thanks for coming on and enjoying this with me.